Hey, so what's going on, everyone? This is Travis. I wanted to introduce a new feature to Hacked by Halftime on the recommendation by one of our fans, Tyler Day. So shout out to Tyler. He recommended doing quick episodes. So that way we can cover more topics for everyone and get out episodes more quickly. So this will be the first episode of a series we're calling Overtime. So you'll get these episodes between each of the longer episodes that we usually put out once every 2 weeks. So again, Travis here. I'm a cyber warfare technician. Just want to give everyone a heads up that even though I work for the government, that these views are my personal opinion and not the government's, right? So today's topic that we wanted to kind of dig in on. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that recently I've been really pulling the thread on NIL athletes being $1 million targets. And this is going to be the cyber reality behind some of that analysis that we've done, right? Because at the end of the day, NIL has transformed athletes from just being students and athletes. That's not the case anymore. Really, they're small businesses at this point with massive financial value and really vulnerable within the cyber world. So if we think about it and equate it to business, a $3 million NIL athlete isn't a teenager with a deal. They're a business. And every business at that level is really a target when you think about it. And let's do some comparisons here, right? Just so that way you can really get an idea of how this equates to the real world. So what we're going to do is look at cyber attacks that have occurred and we're going to equate them to NIL, right? So if you look at recently, there was a dental practice that was targeted through e-commerce, and it was roughly $50 to $400,000 stolen, and that business was worth $3 million, i.e., an NIL athlete, right? As we keep climbing that ladder of NIL values, let's say there's an athlete, and there's several of them at this point that are worth 5 million or above. A construction firm, along with the healthcare group, they were recently hacked, and that was 1.2 to 1.7 million dollars stolen from them. And then finally, 800,000 to roughly 1.5 million. Again, marketing company, and they lost $250,000 plus through phishing. They lost a bunch of data as well. So what I wanted to highlight was these companies, they have IT teams and they still lost millions of dollars. So what do you think happens when an 18-year-old or 17-year-old or just a young adult is given that money without any of those IT or cybersecurity teams to help them protect it? So really, really think about that, right? And when we talk about why NIL athletes are easy targets, we can really dive into it here. Young, wealthy, and inexperienced. It's not a knock against them. They just do not have that life experience yet, that exposure, haven't been through education regarding these things, regarding how vulnerable they are within the cyber domain. They travel constantly. If you look at, there's tons of studies out there right now. If you look at the Big Ten, you have a team in California with USC, as well as in Oregon, all the way along the West Coast, spanning to Rutgers in New Jersey, Penn State in Pennsylvania. So really, they're traveling constantly. They're using hotel Wi-Fi as well as open Wi-Fi when they're traveling. So it makes them more exposed to traditionally vulnerable areas of cybersecurity. Their public lifestyle makes them easy to impersonate. They post a lot of information out there, as well as even before they became rich or before they got these deals. What threat actors will do is begin to go back historically and look at information that they can exploit that was out there. They have to use multiple communication channels. Talk about Slack, Signal, WhatsApp, Instagram DMs, emails, different portals they have to go through. Again, little cybersecurity training, and then high emotional pressure. And there's tons of stories out there recently, unfortunately, of this emotional pressure also causing suicide, right? So we know that there is tons of emotional pressure on these athletes. As a result of that, you can become emotionally vulnerable as well, which is unfortunately what scammers will use to target when they go after victims. And speaking of scammers, they know the exact moment athletes are going to be vulnerable: after big games, if they lose, during recruiting windows, after signing bonuses, and then, as we stated, during travel. So when we think about it, every NIL athlete is walking around with the threat profile of really like a startup founder without the staff, the budget, or the training. That's the value, the financial value that they're bringing is that of a startup founder. And they do not have the team around them, business wise, cybersecurity wise, to protect that value. So it's something that I want to highlight just because of how important it is. And then some of the real cyber threats that are happening right now out there within this same thread are scammers sending fake contracts, fake W-9s, fake wire instructions in an attempt to exploit these NIL athletes. And then you have account takeovers. This is often done through what we call single factors. So the way I want you to think about this is if all your socials only require a password and not multi-factor, which means if they only require a password as single, but multi-factor would be, hey, I have to punch in a password, and then on top of that, I get a PIN sent to me. That would be multi-factor authentication, right? One thing I assess that we will see in the future here, we see it a lot with celebrities right now, where fake social profiles created of that celebrity, and then they will scam everyday people, everyday civilians, right? So it's something to keep an eye out on for sure. You want to be able to do brand protection, identity protection, and make sure that there isn't scammers out there using your own profile against you, because that'll cause reputational harm. And then personal data exposure. So one thing I really want athletes to think about, as well as athletic departments and these vendors that are signing athletes to contracts, is the protection of their data. So when they sign these contracts, you have to give a bake rounding number, you have to give your social, you're going to get a W-9, all these kind of things, as well as injury or medical details that could be tied to an endorsement. And you want to make sure the vendor that you're working with can say confidently, or show you, is what I would recommend, is to get somebody who can look at that cybersecurity architecture to say, hey, this is protected, this is safe. If not, what you're going to find is you give them your data, and then in a breach, all of a sudden, all of your information is gone and somebody can use it against you. So when your brand is worth millions, one stolen password isn't an inconvenience, right? It becomes a business crisis. And you can see this happen across Fortune 500 companies every day, whether it's old credentials, which is an old username and password that's used to exploit a company. In this case, it would be your IG profile. And then they're getting all your DMs that you didn't want anyone to see. All of these kind of things go into it. It can really cause a lot of consternation. So the fast, the down and easy here is going to be what athletes must do. And it's really a longer list than this, but since we're keeping this to a 5 to 20 minute episode, you need to turn on multi-factor authentication everywhere that you can. It may be inconvenient to get a PIN or have an email sent to another device, whatever the case may be, but it will protect you in creating obstacles. It's not going to protect you 100%, but it makes obstacles, makes it harder for those malicious cyber actors trying to get to your information. Additionally, I think this has been well documented at this point. I think athletes are getting better protection, but you never want to negotiate brand deals through DMs, right? You want to move all deals to verified emails or platforms, so that way you can ensure that you're dealing with legitimate individuals. I would also recommend, and you get this in our training when we come to your campus, right, is providing you the tools to look if you don't have an agent, or maybe there's not protocols for you that are protecting you, but we give you tools to look at. You can reverse look up some of these emails and some of these individuals that are reaching out to you. And then you want to have separate personal and NIL email accounts. You do not want to mix business and pleasure. So the fourth is going to be verify every contract or payment request. And what that means is a 30-second phone call to say, hey, what's going on with this? Verify who you're dealing with. And it could prevent a significant amount of cash being lost. We see this with professional athletes all the time. And then again, just to hone in on this one point, is treat your identity like a business asset, because that's what it is. At the end of the day, what I love about NIL is it's giving multiple personalities and great voices across the college athletic spectrum to really show who they are. And that's great. That is a phenomenal tool, in my opinion. But it's tied to your identity, right? So you need to protect it, because that is the business asset. You are the business asset at the end of the day. So to me, NIL has created really like athlete CEOs is really what it's created. You just haven't been trained like a CEO yet. And that's the difference. So that's what we really want to impart upon athletes listening to this podcast, as well as other individuals out there, because those are tools that you can use across all spectrums of life. And then really here are the key takeaways. NIL athletes, right? They have the financial footprint of a small business. And it's hard to wrap your head around, but that's the reality that we're living in right now. Is if you want to go look up a business, you could identify that individuals now have the same net worth as that entire businesses. Small businesses are getting hacked constantly. We see this every day in the news. Every day. You can go Google cyber attack on small businesses and you will see they are the primary target for a lot of hackers. And as a result of that, I would say you could make the assessment that NIL athletes will now become the target of malicious cyber activity. Athletes have fewer protections and less training, right? However, they have more public exposure. So what that creates is really a vulnerable, what we would call vulnerable attack surface, which means cyber actors are going to begin to probe and look at that and understand the environment and then take advantage of that environment. And cyber criminals already know this and they're adjusting, just as we said. So if you're making business money, you need business protection. NIL has completely changed the game. And now it's time for athletic departments and athletes to understand it's time to call cybersecurity into the game to suit up. Without it, I believe and I assess truly that we will begin to see athletes, NIL athletes, college age students just begin to become the new attack surface for cyber threat actors. So thank you for joining us on this first episode of Overtime. Kept it short and sweet. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, comment. As you can tell, we take everybody's opinion in based on fan reaction and everything like that.